Germans so that they wouldn't be taken. And in this cellar, one of these brave souls carved on the wall, "I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining." It's amazing, even in this terrible circumstance, someone had faith, could write something like that on the wall, because, God is like the sun. When the sun isn't shining, it's still there. And even when we have moments in our life when we don't perceive God's presence, God is still there. It's difficult to have faith. It's very difficult to have this ongoing belief in God. It's something we aspire to. It's not something we readily embrace. But when I think about aspiring to this, I'm going to remember this. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. These are all very beautiful ideas about light. I could go on about light for like another hour. But it's not just about light, because Yom Kippur is also about darkness. God created light and darkness. We say that in the liturgy. We say this quote from Prophet Isaiah, "I form the light and I create darkness." We sing this like in almost every service. So, God doesn't do things capriciously. God does things because they're needed, and darkness, unfortunately, is needed. Because in the light, we just see things on the surface. We don't see things more deeply. But when it's dark, we're forced to use other senses and other means of perception to understand things. We need to engage our mind and our heart in the darkness to really understand things. We all have dark places in our lives. These are things we'd like to hide from or hide from others. The Yom Kippur rituals and liturgy are ways to expose these dark places into the light so that we can get rid of them. We don't carry them around with us next year. We recite many prayers of repentance, and we're going to in a few minutes, like the Al-Chet and the Ashamnu. They categorize the many possible ways we've gone wrong this year. We say them out loud, not just by rote. We say them out loud in the hopes that we can bring these places to light and rid ourselves of them. When we say all these confessions, it's also an important reminder that we're human. By being human, we're not inherently perfect. Even though my mom thought I was perfect, we're not inherently perfect. We have our frailties and our strengths. We have the good things we do, and we have the many other things that we do that aren't so good. We all miss the mark. And that's just the way we are, and that's the way we're expected to be. There's a great story in Kabbalah. I don't know whether people know this story about the creation of the world. It's actually my favorite creation story. When the world, and the Kabbalists understand this as how the world was created. When the world was created, God shone this powerful light into the world. And the plan was for the light to be collected in some vessels to hold the light, and then to gradually be distributed into the world, because the light that was shown contained great love, compassion, and powerful energy to make the world a perfect place. But the light was so powerful, it shattered the vessels. And it took these pieces of light with these broken pieces of the vessels all over the world, where they sit, waiting for each of us to gather them and release the light within them. That's how the Kabbalists understood Tikkun Olam, releasing the light in the shattered vessels. At the end of a wedding ceremony, what does the groom do? Besides kiss the bride. He breaks a glass. Lots of rabbis say, we break the glass now because it's a way to remember that even in this moment of our joy, terrible things have happened to the Jewish people. I don't like that. When and if I do a wedding, what I'm going to say is, we break this glass to remind us, just as you're creating this new entity called your new family, God created the world and these vessels were shattered. You've just shattered a vessel. And your task as a new couple is to gather the hidden light in this shattered glass and bring it back together and make the world a better place. So, there are many ways to release the light from a dark place. You know, I love to tell medical stories, so I'll tell you a medical story. You know, it was Friday night. I got a call, a consultation, a patient of mine who I hadn't seen for a number of months. She was in the hospital, and she was hospitalized because it was kind of an end-of-life hospitalization. She was going to die in the hospital. It was Friday night. It was 5:30. I was extremely tired. It had been a long day. And I said to myself, this can wait. I don't need to go there on a Friday night. I'm going to accomplish nothing concrete when I go there. There's going to be no point to tiring myself even more. Of course, being the person that I am, I said, you gotta go, go. So I went, and this poor little lady looked up at me and she said, oh, Dr. Mann, I'm so glad you came to see me today. And that was the light that needed to be released into the room, you know. The joy she felt at feeling like she mattered, like I cared about her. Of course, when I went to the order book, there was nothing for me to write. There was nothing concrete that I could accomplish. I was right about that, but I was wrong about not wanting to go there. So there's another medical story I'd like to tell you about, which really talks about releasing the light from dark places. Remarkably, and this always amazed me, a patient would come into my office and say, you know, Dr. Mann, I'm really sorry I got cancer. I'm really, really sorry. But you know, the good thing about getting this cancer is that I realized what was really important in my life, what really mattered. And they reoriented their whole life. They changed how they lived. Now, this is the way we all should be. We shouldn't have to wait to have a life-threatening illness to reorient our lives and find the things that really matter. So if you think that we're not supposed to, I still haven't convinced you that we're not supposed to bring the light into the world. You know, the prophet Isaiah says, I, the Lord, have called unto you in righteousness, and have taken hold of your hand, and submitted you as the people's covenant. You are to be a light until the nations. You are to share the light in the world. I think there's one difficult place to bring the light to, and that's bringing the light into a place where you cannot forgive yourself. Guilt traps the light. When you can't forgive yourself, you can't release the light that's present in a mistake. You know, when I do something wrong, besides saying, oh, what did I do this, you know, and over the woes of the guilt, I really try and stop myself and say, you know, why did I do this, and what do I need to learn from this so I don't do it again? That's releasing the light from guilt. You know, we're all going to be together for the next day, and Yom Kippur is a challenging time for many of us. You know, we're going to say these prayers that recount all the terrible things humanity does. We're going to do some thinking about what we might have done. And then we have this whole Yizkor ritual where we remember people who were dear to us, who've died. And it's a time that lots of feelings arise. You know, some of them are difficult to deal with. That's why we do all these rituals in community. We don't do them as individual rituals. We don't go into a confessional booth with a priest and give the confession. We do it as a community. And we do it as a community because ideally we support each other as a community. We're not alone. We're all together. So sometime over the course of the next day or so, it might be good to just share a nod, share a smile with someone who, in between some of the moments in the service, go say hello and check in with people and really support each other. There's one final way to release the light in Yom Kippur, which I want to share with you, and that's the prayer book. You know, it's a big prayer book. It's very thick. We've done a lot of it already today, but wait until tomorrow. There's a lot tomorrow. You know, the prayers are not the end point. Saying the prayers just right isn't the goal of it. It's not like you say the prayers and you put a combination and a safe opens. The prayers are a means to an end. The prayers are there to inspire you There's so many prayers because different prayers inspire different people. For me, my advice about how to manage the prayers, which are in Hebrew and English, I don't know Hebrew, I have trouble with the Hebrew, is to just find a few verses of the prayers and see if you can find meaning in those, or find even one word. One word. If you find one word that brings you meaning this holiday, it's really Dainu. It's enough. It's enough. For me, that word is compassion. When I hear compassion in liturgy, my ears prick up. I said, that's my lesson. I have to develop more and more compassion so I can be more available to those who need me in the world. So find a word, find a few phrases, find a moment, find something, because the prayers are not the goal. The goal is finding meaning. That's what I hope all of you accomplish through this day. Mm-hmm. The book of Proverbs, and I love this, says that God's candle is the soul of humankind. Our souls are God's candle, bringing light to God. My hope is that when we reach the end of the day at Nila, all of those candles out there, they're going to be shining very, very brightly. They're going to be shining very, very brightly and bring light into the world next year. So that when the gates close at Nila, the gates will close. We're going to finish, for sure. They won't close with you on the wrong side of them. They'll close with you in front of them, seeing the whole world in front of you and all the amazing and terrific adventures you might have this year. And that's Ken Yehi Ratzon. May it be so.